Good evening, everyone. I am Daryl D'Souza, founder of Earthkeepers Connect, your host for this evening, the 16th day of the pre-summit webinars leading up to the New Earth Summit in November. It is the second edition of India's first integrative summit on solutions to our problems in health, food, farming, and environment. I extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists of this evening, and also on behalf of our 10 Earthkeeper groups in India and overseas. And we express our gratitude to you for taking out the time from your busy schedules to be with us this evening and to share your wisdom so that all watching this webinar and its recording later may understand why there is an increasing number of people every day across the world who are giving up animal products completely and moving to a plant-based food system. So that's our topic for today. Plant food choices, are they for people, for the animals, or the planet? So I will start with introducing our panelists. Nandini Gulati is a holistic health coach, climate activist, and organic gardener. She believes that our diets, lifestyles, and consumption patterns dictate our health and the state of the planet. She is a published co-author of Guilt-Free Vegan Cookbook, a delightful repository of healthy and tasty multi-cuisine recipes from around the world. Aditya Harmalkar is an entrepreneur by profession, but also a dedicated animal rights activist in his part-time. He is also passionate about vegan fitness and health. He and his group, We Goan, started spreading awareness about veganism in Goa from November 2017 onwards, after deciding to do their bit for the animals, for the planet, and for the health of fellow human beings. Aditya is passionate about giving public talks on compassion towards animals, as well as educating people about the health benefits of a plant lifestyle and for food, and has helped many people transition into a compassionate and healthful plant-based lifestyle. Shankar Narayan founded Indian Vegan Society in 2004. Now it is known as Sattvic Vegan Society since 2014. He founded Chitta Prajna Vegan Forest in 2009. He was the regional coordinator for India, Southwest Asia for the International Vegetarian Union from 2006 to 2016. He has been organizing vegan festivals every year since 2004 and is selected as one of the members of the Vegan Task Force by Food Safety and Standards Authority of India recently. So here is our first question for the panelists. What was the main motivation for you to switch to a complete plant-based diet? Could I ask Nandini Gulati to please share her journey and a view on it?
Yes, sure. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. Initially, the motivation or the push came from my health. My health was not good. I was overweight and I had high blood pressure, and my doctor said I was pre-diabetic. So I was looking for some solutions. And prior to this, I was a non-vegetarian, and I used to eat fish and chicken and all of that, and eggs and so on. And but I was not a very unhealthy eater, by the norms of society. I used to love salads. I loved fruit. I ate primarily vegetarian, and this non-veg was maybe once a week or twice a week. So I was quite mystified why I was overweight, why I was not able to get rid of my excess weight. I tried several diets from, my late 20s onwards, and it would fall off when I stuck to the diet. And when I went back to my regular food, then it would come back. So at some level, I knew that it was not sustainable. What I really needed was a lifestyle change. But I was doing whatever was conventional knowledge at that time, low fat milk and not too much fried and not too much junk food, not too much sweet and sugary food, a lot of salad, a lot of fruit. And yet I was overweight. So when I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, I knew that, I can't now be complacent about this. I had to do something drastic, and I have to reduce weight, because reducing weight is one of the factors which helps reverse or reduce blood pressure. So at that time, I was practicing a lot of mindful eating. And during one of my I had been doing it for 2 years, and I actually wanted to become vegetarian, but I didn't want to force myself. I felt that the desire for it must go. And that's why I was practicing mindful eating. And then in one of my mindful meditations, I saw very clearly the journey of the piece of chicken on my plate, of where it was coming from. And something shifted inside me, and I ate that piece of chicken. And then I told my mother, I don't think I'm going to eat non-veg again. So she was, a little, like it, I was not dramatic. I was very, even and cool. And I wasn't even 100% sure, but there was an intuition that came up. And my mother said, okay, because my mother by then was already vegetarian. So, and I felt quite good about it. And then a few days later, I remember this was 31st July 2011. And on 6th August, my friend gave me a book called The China Study. And in it, I found some of the answers that I had been looking for as it pertains to diet and lifestyle. So when I read that book, I felt quite cornered, because I was someone who believed in healthy eating and health. It was a priority for me, even though I was not healthy, but it was a priority for me. And secondly, I cared about the environment. And third, I cared about animals. And I felt that if I call myself an animal lover, a person who's conscious about health, and somebody who cares about what we are doing to the environment, then I have no choice but to go plant-based, because I saw evidence that it benefits all three areas. So that's the reason I decided to go plant-based. And at that time, this was 2011, 15th August 2011, I went vegan. And at that time, there was not that much awareness. And there was certainly, I didn't know how to substitute milk or yogurt or anything, I didn't know anything. I just cut it out of my diet. So after some time, I started feeling deprivation. And that's when I started searching online, and I came across Dr. Nandita Shah's program. And I decided to go to Auroville and attend her program. And there she taught us all the substitutions that can be done. So that was very exciting for me. And I felt like, wow, now I can do this. So that's my story.
So can you tell us the name of the program that you went for?
It was called Peas versus Pills.
Okay.
I don't know if she still holds those, but at that time it was a one-day program, and it was introduction to a plant-based diet. And now, of course, she holds many programs on reversing diabetes, hypertension, and has a big team who teaches cooking classes and stuff like that.
Yes, that's right. She was also a panelist on a previous webinar where it was about reversing diabetes.
Yeah, I had attended that.
Thank you, Nandini, for that insight and your reasons. Aditya, would you like to share what was your main motivation to go on a plant-based diet?
Yes, sure, Daryl. So it was back in October 2014 that I first started veering towards a plant-based diet. And the main motivation for me was actually ethics, the morality of killing animals. And it was a strange experience, because it was like an epiphany for me. No one told me anything about this. I didn't see any video, any post, nothing. I just started making the connection with the animals on my plate, and I realized that there was injustice. I felt that it was wrong. So that was the only motivator for me. At that time, I just turned 19. I just completed being 19, and I did not have access to a lot of information. I did not know how good or bad animal products are for our health, nor did I know how nutritionally inferior or superior plant-based diet is for human health. So eventually it started with me cutting out meat, so I went vegetarian. But eventually I learned about how animals are treated in the dairy industry and the poultry industry. And eventually I cut out all animal products, and it was for no other reason than ethics. However, during this transition period, I also started educating myself about nutrition. I started learning about the different nutrients and the different foods that we need from a diet. And what I learned was the purported health benefits of animal products were a product of industry funding, industry propaganda, manipulation. And today it's a well established fact that consuming animal products is the leading cause of many of our world's top killers, whether it's heart disease, diabetes, cancer, or whatever. Because these products, they're so bundled heavily with cholesterol, saturated fat, heme, iron, and all these harmful things that human beings don't even need. Whereas study after study shows that a plant-based diet is the most optimal diet for human beings because it's loaded with fiber, it's loaded with phytonutrients, antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals, and it provides a multitude of health benefits. In fact, it's the only diet known to not only prevent but also reverse heart disease. And this was a discovery by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who's an American heart specialist. Also, it's known to cure 14 of the 15 leading health problems in the world. And this is all scientifically based on non-funded studies where there's no conflicts of interest. And when I learned all this, I became more conscious about what I was eating, what I was putting into my body, and how I was nourishing myself. So, along with ethics, health also became a very big role. Furthermore, I also learned about how agriculture is the leading cause of almost all of the world's leading health problems. Today, we are raising 70 billion land animals every year globally for food. In addition to that, we're also raising 3 trillion marine animals for food every year. So this puts an immense strain on the Earth's infinite resources, such as land, water, and energy. In comparison, to produce plant foods for 7 billion humans, you require so much less land, water, and energy. It's simply more sustainable. Animal agriculture is the source of 51% of global greenhouse gas emissions. It's a leading cause of deforestation, climate change, ocean dead zones, and species extinction. So when you learn all this, you realize that what you put onto your plate not only affects you personally, but it affects everyone around you, the whole planet that you're living on. So these were the primary motivations as to why I switched to a plant-based diet. And personally, I cannot tell you enough about the health benefits that I've experienced after going on a plant-based diet. It's simply amazing. And I recommend everyone try this lifestyle out. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Aditya. So there's been a lot of, not only your own experience, but a lot of research and studies that you've been going through, and you've, educated yourself really well. And yes, I've been reading some of your posts also on nutrition on the group, so they are, they're very informative. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Shankar, could you please share with us your journey and, for since so many years, such a firm resolve, and you've taken it as a life's mission. So how did it happen for you?
Namaste everyone. Namaste to Daryl D'Souza, the organizer, my co-panelists Nandini Gulati, Aditya Harmalkar, and to all the audience. I'm very happy to be here with you in this beautiful evening. I'm very happy to share my journey. According to a study, 1 in 100 is a natural vegan. We don't need any efforts to convert that person. Already vegan, maybe a small trigger is required. I'm very happy to say that I am lucky to be one of those 1 in 100 vegans who are naturally vegans. I'm a born vegetarian, lacto-vegetarian. Uh, Even when I was a child, I had this vegan thing in me. We were taught what is good, what is bad in life, what is right and wrong in schools, in homes. So people were teaching drinking is bad, smoking is bad. I was questioning why eating animals is not bad. People were never talking about that. It was my internal struggle when I was a child. I couldn't ask this question to anyone. But this question was nagging within me. Because people say drinking is bad, this is bad, that telling lies is bad. But no one talks about eating animals as bad. This was already questioning, and I was wondering why it is so. Then it continued like that. Even when I was in college, I had a very strong thinking that if individuals change, the whole society changes, the whole country changes, the world can be better if we create good individuals. This veganism is nothing but be the change you want to see in the world. Later, I realized being a strong individual, being the right person. So that is what veganism is for me, which I found out later. So this journey continued like this. Though the vegan thing was within me, I was not a vegan till very recently. I read Mahatma Gandhi's autobiography in 1989. That's about 31 years ago. And in that, I read that Mahatma Gandhi had stopped consuming milk when he was in Phoenix Ashram in South Africa. So he was a vegetarian. He stopped consuming milk. Though there was no vegan word at that time, he became a vegan without knowing the word vegan. That was in 1911. He continued to be so for so many years, but later he consumed goat's milk. He started consuming goat milk, which he considered a tragedy of his life. So Mahatma Gandhi was the first vegan, according to me, and he was the instrumental in founding the vegan movement in England also. So the same Mahatma Gandhi triggered my veganism in 1989 through his autobiography, My Experiments with Truth. So after that, though I stopped consuming milk, I was not totally vegan. Though I didn't know vegan word, I was not vegan also because I was compromising here and there. I was eating derivatives of milk. I was using leather. So all these changed slowly. In 1993, I read a newspaper article where it said that snakes are skinned alive for their leather. Though I never used snake skin leather, I thought using leather is not a right thing. I immediately stopped using leather. That was in 1993. It continued like that. I was working in Dubai in 1996. I got hold of internet. I got to know something about International Vegetarian Union and Vegan Society. All these I got exposed to through internet. Then there was a very strong desire for me to change my lifestyle in this very deliberate attempt. I quit my job. I didn't know what I was doing, but deliberately I didn't want to stay there. I quit. I came back, and on June 1st, 2001, I decided no more excuses. I will no more consume any animal products, whether it is milk or milk products or honey. No use of any animal leather or silk or anything derived from cruelty or animals. I decided not to use from 1st June 2001. It was a deliberate attempt. So if my time is up, please tell me, because I have a long story to tell, as long as there are listeners. So it continued like that. So my journey, I keep saying even now, veganism is not a destination, it's a journey. So my journey continues even after 19 years. It is the 20th year, a conscious vegan life for me. From 2001, 2004, I was struggling. I didn't know what to do. I was very feeling isolated, feeling lonely. There was no one who could understand my position. So I wanted to bring together people like me, and I started Indian Vegan Society in 2004. Immediately, I started organizing events. That is how I came to know there are more people like me. So Vegan Society started, Vegan Festival started. Then 2006, I was in Goa. I was part of International Vegetarian Unions, the World Vegetarian 38 World Vegetarian Congress. and I got to know a lot of vegans. There are so many people are there in the world who are called vegans who don't use any animal products, and journey continued. Oh, there is a lot to learn, lot to share. It's a beautiful journey. It continues even now. I am stronger than ever. I gained with my health. I gained with my mental strength. I helped others also in some way to those 99% who need some support. I have been trying to give them support in this journey. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shankar, for your journey. And yes, some good information and also insight into what you shared about Mahatma Gandhi being the first vegan. Um, and so my question to all the panelists is, as you transitioned and came into this, uh, did you feel any change in your state of being or, anxiety, stress, or did you feel a little more calmness? Because people are beginning to understand that when animals are killed, of course they are in very stressful states, and they are secreting all stress hormones. So people who are eating animals meat, and all those hormones are there in it. And there is some studies and references are there to people being more stressed out, more aggressive, meat eaters. So, did you have that experience when you got off meat completely and into a plant-based? Did any of your family members or friends, ever say that you've become a more calmer person? Anything, any experience like that?
For me, I felt a lot cleaner and I felt more in alignment with my values. And I think my anger levels dropped. I won't say they're completely gone, but they did drop. And I think I had a spiritual quest ever since I was young. I believe that there is more to life than just what we see and just this mortal body. So I felt it's a little difficult to describe, but more in alignment with the spiritual life that I wanted to lead. I felt like, okay, I shifted 1 degree closer or 5 degrees closer to where I want to go. When I was not, when I was still eating animals, I felt like, okay, I'm saying one thing, but I'm doing another.
Okay.
So that was very calming overall for me.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Nandini. Aditya, any experience for you?
Yeah, Daryl, this is a very nice question actually, because I have a lot to say about this. And actually, when I first quit eating meat, the first thing I felt was more of anger because I suddenly realized what we are doing to animals, and I saw how everyone around me is part of the system, and how just not too far ago I was part of the system. But it was only just a few years later when I went vegan. It was only then I felt like I become a much more calmer person, much more compassionate, much more understanding, and overall just less angry. And I feel like this is truly a very unique experience. And unless you really go vegan, I don't think you will get to experience this. It's something really unique. So now when I look at someone working at a butcher shop, of course, I do feel some anger because I can see a helpless animal being killed. But more than that, I actually feel this sadness. I feel sad about the animal who's being killed, and I feel sad about the person who's working there because he's born into this violent system. It's not something he opted for. He did not dream at the age of 12 that he will get into this kind of profession. No one aspires to be in that. So it's like a different spiritual feeling. It's I don't know how to describe it. I don't know what are the right words for it. But I'm glad that I've experienced this because I feel like a completely different person now than I was just a few years ago. I feel like I've become more understanding when I converse with people, whether it's about veganism or any other topic. I know how to deal with it, how to have a better control over my emotions, and how to properly convey my message without making the other person feel judged in any way. And I'm really thankful for veganism for doing this to me. I'm thankful for the person that I am now. And of course, everyone should continue to evolve. Change is never comfortable, but it's definitely worth it. And if you find something about you that needs to be changed, then please go ahead, muster up the courage and do the change, because it will be certainly worth it in the long term.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Aditya. Shankar, how about you? Do you feel any change in energy, consciousness with your shift?
Yes, there are big changes, several changes from health point of view, spiritual advancement point of view, social point of view, financial point of view. In everything, I feel much, much better and richer now. First thing, if I were working in corporate field, I would have been, my pocket would have been fatter, but I am much richer in all the other aspects. First, my health. Yeah, I'm sitting cross-legged for almost 1 hour now. Probably, if I were not vegan, I would not have sat like this. So when I was returning from Dubai, doctor had advised me not to climb stairs, not to sit in Indian toilet. So my knees were so painful because of an accident. Both the knees were damaged. So doctor had advised what is the remedy. So not use your knee joint so much. I did opposite. I did everything, and now not only I use Indian toilet, I climb. This is about 20 feet. This platform is about 20 feet above the ground. I climb every day so many times, climb up, and I climb trees also. So this is the physical transformation. It is not just about dietary change, it is a holistic change, so many aspects. But I did gain from my diet in my health. Second thing, spiritual advancement. Uh, okay, diet helped me change in the outlook of the world, outlook of my own life. I started reading Bhagavad Gita. Someone suggested me. It helped me a lot. So, what is life? Bhagavad Gita, the second chapter particularly, it talks about Chitta Prajna, the same name I have given here for this forest. I have been living this forest since 2009. That is 11 years now. First 4 years without electricity, the whole forest here, it's a backward area. There was no electricity. The whole village, there was no public transport. It was such an isolated area. In the first 7 years, I was with the crowd. I was traveling everywhere. I was going to schools, going to events, going to cities, promoting veganism. But from 2009 onwards, I wanted a different shift to my life. So I moved to this place, this forest. At that time, it was much backward, no mobile signal, no connection to the external world. But I could stay here, though there were snakes, there were wild animals, there are tigers. So in spite of all this, I was not scared. The mental stability I gained, mental clarity. So this is one of the most important benefits spiritually I gained after becoming vegan. The third thing is financially. Financially, one best thing is I used to earn more to satiate my more and more needs. After becoming vegan, my needs have become very, very minimal now. Though I use mobile phone, I use computer, my basic needs are very minimum. I don't need much for anything. Even I can survive without basic needs of civilization. So that is the condition. I don't need much earning now. I don't have to struggle so much. So this is the easiest thing I have gained from becoming vegan. Then socially, another important gain I got. Okay, and when I began my journey, it was quite difficult because I was strange person, even I was mad person for my society, my relatives. It is quite strange. They have to, it is a fact. For them, they couldn't digest me, what I was doing. almost 20 years ago. But slowly what happened, there was a need for me to be socialized. I wanted to find like-minded people. I created my own society. See, it's such a beautiful life. When you don't get one, so many other options, other doors open. I got to know so many vegans from all over the world. And being part of IVU, a global union of vegan and vegetarian organizations, I was there for 10 years. That connected me from my family members all over the world, from Argentina to Australia, New Zealand to Nepal, everywhere I have friends. This is the beautiful global society I am part of now. So this beauty you won't get being a person who earns for oneself just for my bread. If I were earning and I would have had a fat bank deposit, but this society, this beautiful global feeling, I would not have got if I were not a vegan. So this way I got benefit in multifarious ways, and I'm continuing in many other ways also, which I can't explain in words. The feeling of part of the cosmos. So that is really, see, when I sit on this platform, this is a totally elevating experience. So there are endless possibilities, endless experiences. I'm really grateful to this life for giving me the opportunity and platform to become a vegan and more. Vegan is not a destination, it's a journey. I continue to learn, I continue to experience new things every day. Even today, it's a beautiful experience. Thanks to you all.
Thank you, Shankar, for conveying your feelings and also, your sentiment. And yes, I also getting to understand that. So even with lesser things in life, and in a place that is not so populated, you are still having a fuller life and more happiness and tranquility and peace. And I think that is something difficult for city people to grasp, that how you can be happy with lesser. But you're such a wonderful example. Uh, and I'll go to the next question now for each of our panelists. What were the hurdles that you faced when living up to these plant food choices? And from friends, relatives, or people who are trying to tell you that you're doing something wrong and you're going to get sick if you don't eat your meat, and where are you going to get your vitamin D from and B12 from? So all of these challenges, how did you overcome? Any of the panelists who would like to take it first?
I think you ask, you can answer, I think.
Yes, Nandini, would you like to take it?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the challenges that I had when I went vegan in 2011 was lack of awareness, one, of how to substitute some of the food that I was used to. So I felt a certain sense of deprivation because I didn't know at that time how to substitute, and I just left them, as I mentioned earlier. So that happened till I think February, which is when I went for that seminar that I was mentioning. So about 7-8 months I went through that. But once I went and I knew, and I figured out that one can have almond milk or soy curd or peanut curd or tofu as paneer, that just went away, and I don't think I faced like I'm quite a strong person. Like whatever I want to do, I do. So nobody can convince me if I see that there is no value in what they are saying, or they are just being curious, and actually they don't know the answer too well. So I just when people asked me, I just said I'm doing it like an experiment for my health, and I'll see how it goes. I am monitoring my parameters, and I've been wanting to lose weight, and I want to be in better health, drop the challenges that I was facing at that time. So for me, it was not a big challenge to deal with other people. It was a bigger challenge to deal with my own mind and to convince myself to stay the path and to also wean off the previous addictions and cravings that I used to have. And also technically to learn how to be on a plant-based diet successfully. And I definitely wanted to be vegan because the whole idea of avoiding animal cruelty was very attractive to me. So I definitely did not want to consume any milk products, even if I consume chocolate once in a while. So it wasn't healthy, but I looked for what was the vegan chocolate that I could find. So it was more the technical aspect of finding the right substitution, avoiding avoiding products with animal inputs in them. You see, one of the problems, you can easily avoid meat in this country because vegetarian is big and everybody understands vegetarianism. But dairy, and you can see it also, you can see flesh, you can figure out that there is egg in this or not, although egg can also be hidden. But dairy is almost always hidden. You can have a sabzi thinking, okay, this is a, gobi ki sabzi, and there must not be anything in it. And then you find out that, oh, the host put a little, ghee in it to make it. Or you could be having dal thinking, oh, dal, legumes, those are plant-based. But then you realize there's cream in the dal. So learning this, where all dairy is hidden, initially was my big challenge. And also the old cravings. Like I used to love a mithai called Shondesh, which is from Calcutta. And I was like a big, big fan of Shondesh. And I had just discovered it just before I went vegan. So one of my friends, she didn't know that I was vegan, nor did she understand what it meant. Got some during this time. The Noton Gur comes in the West, and in West Bengal, and the Shondesh made out of it is really, really tasty. So she sent me a whole box, and I looked at this box and I looked at my mother and I said, I really want to taste this because I have not ever tasted this. So she said, taste it and then don't eat it after that. And I was like, that's better than just battling, this urges in my mind. And I had literally half a piece of one. And I was like, okay, I know what it tastes like. I don't want to now eat more of this. And that was the only non-vegan thing I ate. And that was about, I think, 5 months after I had gone vegan. After that, if somebody presented something, I just said, I've eaten fish 1,000 times. I know exactly what it tastes. I've eaten gulab jamun, 1,000,000 times. I know what it tastes. So these are some of the psychological tricks I had to play on myself in order to avoid this. So that initial period is, and when someone gave a really tasty mango shake and everybody around the table was drinking it and saying, oh, this mango shake is so tasty. I said, no, this is, in my mind, I replayed the videos of animal cruelty and I said, no taste is worth the suffering of another being. And no taste is worth my own health, sacrificing my own health. And no taste is worth the kind of, the environmental damage that animal agriculture and dairy and all that do. So I had to keep reminding myself to rewire some of those neurons, that were already wired for craving these things and some of the old habits. So that's what really helped me to learn how to convince myself, how to talk to myself, and how to stay the path of what I believed in and my values and not fall for 10 seconds of pleasure on my tongue.
Yes, thank you, Nandini, for your whole experience and what you went through. Aditya, what would you like to share of the challenges that you faced, because you were much younger and people would have told you that you won't get enough nutrition or you will become weak and you'll have deficiencies. How did you deal with that?
So for me personally, I was very lucky because when I first announced the decision to go vegetarian to my parents, they were both very supportive. In fact, they had nothing to say against it. Of course, my mom initially she didn't want me to quit eating fish because she's Bengali and we've been eating it for a long time. But I was very true to my resolve. So yeah, overall it was very good for me. Plus, I was already used to eating. Even if I'm eating fish, I'll still be eating dal. I'll still be eating vegetables. So all I had to do was just take out the fish or take out the chicken, and that's it. And I was never the one to just go out and look for alternatives. What can I eat instead of meat? I was happy with whatever I was eating, even if it's just regular Indian food. And now I understand that this may not be the same case with everyone. There may be people who grown up in a much more meat heavy household, and they might have more difficulties when changing over to a plant-based diet. So my advice to these people would simply be just to take your time, do your research, learn about nutrition, where you can get all your nutrients from, try out some alternatives, try skipping one animal product at a time, and eventually it will just become like a lifestyle. It will become like a daily habit. And I really don't think living a plant-based lifestyle is any difficult task at all. I think all the supposed difficulties are just exaggerated. Some of the cheapest foods on earth, whether it's oats, potatoes, bananas, rice, vegetables, legumes, these are the most affordable foods on earth. Today, if you go to a restaurant, you can always have a vegan option. Of course, you need to be a little careful about the ingredients and all that, but it's not that difficult. You go to the supermarket, you will be surprised how so many products that you're already buying are probably vegan by default, products that you're already used to. Now, of course, if you're following a completely plant-based diet, you will naturally, if you eat a variety of foods and you're meeting your daily caloric intake, you will get all the nutrients that you need. But of course, you need to be a bit cautious about certain nutrients. Let's say vitamin B12. So now there's a big misconception that if you go vegan, you will be completely deficient in vitamin B12. Now, firstly, this is a nutrient that comes from the soil. It's created by bacteria in the soil. It's not really created by plants or animals. 90% of the world's B12 supplements are given to animals just so that we can get B12 by consuming animal products. So vegans can simply take a B12 supplement, and or else they can opt for B12 fortified foods such as soy milk or breakfast cereals, and same with vitamin D. And I think these are the only real nutrients of concern if you're eating a well-planned vegan diet. And today recipes are just easily available. They're at the click of a button away. And it's very easy to gain access to all these recipes. Today you have so many alternatives. You can have mock meats, you can have vegan pizza, you can have vegan chocolate. Of course, sticking to a whole foods plant-based diet is definitely the more healthy option. If your diet is rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds. And personally, I'm into fitness. I do work out, and definitely my daily caloric requirement is much more than that of an average person. And even then, this is not a difficult goal to meet. As long as I focus on the foods that is going to give me the most energy to not only perform in the gym but also to recover from strenuous workouts, I think, yeah, that's all you need to take care of. Today, you have so many athletes who are switching over to a plant-based diet, whether it's mixed martial artists, weightlifters, bodybuilders, football players, you name it. So the benefits of a plant-based diet are all well known, and also the health aspects. If you need if you want to learn about nutrition, you have access to so many articles. You can read up, educate yourself, and yeah, it's just really easy. All you need to do is just try to get into it, and yeah, it's all about your will and your why. You need to know your why. Personally, one last thing I'd like to say is if you're going vegan for the animals, you're more likely to stay vegan than if you go vegan for your health. And I will like to explain this with a really small example, simple example. If I go to the supermarket and I see a really tempting chocolate, which is made with milk products, if I'm plant based only for my health, I will probably give in to that temptation and eat it thinking that one chocolate probably can't kill me. But if I am vegan for the ethics, I will think about what the cow went through to get the milk to make that chocolate, and that is what will keep me away from buying it. So that's all I'd like to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya. Shankar, what would you like to share with us about the hurdles and obstacles that you faced from, non-vegans, about your choice, or people trying to convert you back into, um, animal foods for certain reasons?
Okay, am I visible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, light is enough. Okay, there were many hurdles, but I never felt those were hurdles really in this journey, because as I told you, I'm a natural vegan. There is no way I can deviate from my path. There is nothing in this world which can change my decision. I was drinking milk, that was an aberration. I corrected that. Once it is corrected, there is no going back. So no difficulty, no hurdle, no problem can change my path. I realized along the way, this vegan association or vegan activism, vegan events helped me get to know a lot of great people, especially doctors. I got to know from many doctors that to be healthy, there are three main important things. One is peace of mind. The mind is very important for being healthy. Mind should be very calm. So that is the foremost important thing. Second thing is activity. We are not supposed to sit idle in front of mobile phone, in front of computer, in front of television or anything throughout the day. So we need to be using our body. Otherwise, we will be losing our body. So being active is very important in life to be healthy. Third important thing is diet. Third important thing being diet. So I was already not eating any animal products except milk. So no egg, no meat. So it was not a big change for me as far as my body is concerned. Body easily adapted, body didn't have any complaint because I was eating the same thing before also. There was no big change. Only small amount of compromises I was making. So that compromise is gone. So I was vegan. So diet-wise, I didn't have any problem at all. There were some problems like society's acceptance, people making fun of me or looking down upon me. All these things were there, but I didn't give much importance to those. Though I had struggle in my life, Bhagavad Gita helped me. Sthita prajna, stable-minded. If I am volatile, then it will create problems for me. As doctor said also, mind is more important. Therefore, I had to be stable-minded. I learned from Bhagavad Gita. Concentrating on positive things helped me, pushing off negatives. So I created a new society, new set of people, new set of family, everything new for me. So it's a beautiful experience. So this way, all hurdles vanish. I'm a natural vegan, as I said. So I didn't have any problem. Even if there is no option in a restaurant to eat, I didn't find a problem. I can go out and buy some bananas and eat and drink some water and survive even while traveling. And if there is some rice, I would be more than happy because generally rice is quite easily vegan, or idli is vegan in a restaurant if I had to eat. So these are all minor things for me. Those things never posed a hurdle. And as I told you, for me, for my health, this is not vitamins or minerals or this, that and all. See, I learned from animals. Looking at the examples of animals, so they live so happily without worrying about anything. Even if we torture so much, they are so much better than us because they are mental conditions. They don't have any doctors for them. They don't have any nutritionists, but still they have a good life. So I learned from them, okay, I need to go to doctor in emergency. On a day-to-day basis, I just eat what my portion I get from the God. What I am entitled today, I eat. That's all. I don't choose. This is my food. This is not my food, and all those things within, of course, vegan parameters. So when I eat that, I don't have any problem as such. So mind is very calm. Food is normal. There is nothing big about that. So quite Indian poor man's food: rice, dal or some vegetables, rarely some fruits. All these I eat, and so far it is good. If there is a problem, of course, I am not going to live forever. I don't want to aspire to live 200 years, 300 years, nothing like that. So even if today I have to go, I am ready for that. When this kind of mental status I have achieved, I don't have any hurdles, no problems.
Thank you, Shankar. Now it's more of a wonderful philosophy that you have, inculcated in your life. And just taking an example, I remembered something when you spoke about, that the milk was the last thing that you left. And in fact, milk was the first thing that showed me that, something is wrong. Because I was, at that time when I was sick, it was 2003, 2004. And I was having severe digestive disorders and I had amoebic colitis. So I had anal fissures and piles. And on the days that I would drink milk, to get strength and all of that, the Tetra Pak milk, that time we wouldn't see, low fat. So uh, on the days that I would have a full glass of milk, I used to have such bad diarrhea with bleeding stools. And then I couldn't, understand why. So I just did an experiment. That milk, I took it and made it half glass, and half glass I put water. And for the days after that, my bleeding stools, they came down. And then I said, how come I've diluted this milk? Maybe it was too heavy for me, you know. So then my condition got a bit better. And then I thought, why not stop it altogether? Let's take a chance. And when I stopped the milk altogether, then my bleeding piles stopped. And I was shocked and I couldn't understand this because till that time I had no technical understanding of the things that I've written in my book, Become Healthy or Extinct, about milk and how heavy the molecular weight of casein is, how it causes acidity, how it doesn't, get digested because lactase and renin are not produced by the human body after, the age of 4. So that's why it cannot break down the milk and becomes a very heavy food. I came to know all of this later, but at that time I was so shocked. I said, what is wrong with me? I thought the problem was with me. I was asking God, what is wrong with me when a newborn baby can have this food and I am 30 years old and I can't have this food? What is so wrong with me? But at least that without any consultation, without any doctors, I knew one thing very clearly. I should not, if I want to kind of, heal my digestive tract, then I cannot have milk. And I stopped milk right at that time. Then the only thing that I was having later, again, because of, people saying it's good, was eggs. So in my journey of healing, which happened in 2004, 2005, even after that, I was having eggs. And but I understood that meats are also causing acidity and difficult for me to digest. So I became a vegetarian in 2010. And still, because it's mentioned in Ayurveda, I was having a little bit of honey and then I was having eggs also. And when I came to understand about, plant based diet and how the real makers of food on this planet are only plants, okay, and how they take because animals don't make any food. It's the plants that take the nutrition from the soil and the water from the soil and the air also. So they take from mother earth, and the other part of the extension of the plant, it takes what I call from father sky, that is, it takes the air and it takes the sunlight, and they make food. You see, then I understood that, and that's the food that the vegetarian animals eat, and then the non-vegetarian animals eat the vegetarian animals. So I got to understand that side, that nutrition is flowing in this way, and so there are so many wrong things that we have done. Human beings are eating food, vegetables, fruits, and all those things that are cultivated on land where they don't have proper, sciences of how to keep the land rich and fertile. So that's why there are so many. I've seen through my experience so many nutritional deficiencies in food. And then when you go to a completely plant-based diet system and you are having these minerally deficient fruits and vegetables and all, you are going to have, deficiencies. So this is for all the vegans to clearly know that look at the source of all your plant-based foods and try and see that it's organic, it's natural, it is coming from good soils. And if you have a full range of, fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, peas, roots, uh, seeds, and all of those things, then you will get your full range of nutrition. And secondly, see that it is, coming from good soils and from organic places. So I have seen, for me, it has been, like an ahimsa movement or non-violence movement. First of all, for me, my journey was non-violence to the human body. The first time I stopped that milk and milk products, my gut healed. So I said I'm not doing one lesser damaging thing to my body. When I gave up meats and all that acidity went, I said that there's next thing that I stopped, damaging my human body. So it was, for me, it's non-violence to the human body. When, and also like I mentioned at the starting, we're eating meats and taking all the stress hormones of the animals into us. That is also damage. So many things we are doing by, animal products that are causing damage to the human body. So I said non-violence to the self, non-violence to those animals themselves. Of course, for no fault of theirs, only for our own ideas, our lesser understanding of how nutrition actually flows in the ecosystem, because we don't have that education. We are going and getting it from these, animals. So that is non-violence to the animals, and then non-violence to the planet, because Aditya last year in his presentation so clearly showed all the amount of damage that animal agriculture is doing to the planet. So much of more land is required to cultivate and grow grass and so many kind of plants to feed all the animals, and so much of water. If I mention that 80% of the water that is used for cultivation is used for growing lands and produce for animals across this planet. So we are even having a water deficiency, because of this animal food choices. Keep that industry running. So there's an entire, ecosystem imbalance and damage on the planet. Uh, so for me, that's real, violence against Mother Earth. And so though my journey was first in health, then I also saw it from a compassionate, aspect for animals. And when I know animals, I am a person who has never even chained a dog or even kept a gate closed. I get upset when there's a dog barking somebody's house and they've locked it up for 3 hours. So of course that animal is having a kind of a trauma at that time. So my feelings towards animals are like this. I'm not a animal activist and I go out there and do things, but I don't tolerate such simple things that I feel are, you know, uh, not right for animals. Even all the kinds of foods that we feed our animals, some of them are not healthy foods for the animals. So I, in my mainly because I teach about food and nutrition, I do have a lot of hurdles where people are trying to it's the only it's I think it's their learning curve when they don't have not understood all the details, then they are challenging all of these things. Why should I give up meat? Why should I give up fish? Why can't I at least have eggs? They are so nutritionally good. So it's just not a hurdle, it's a process of education. That's my experience. So I would like to, yeah, the next question is to our panelists is how can our audience who are watching you and even later the recording, how can they get to know about your work, get in touch with you, understand more of your experience and your journey, and if you are doing any projects, uh, with plant-based foods, how can they get in touch with you? Where is the resource website that they can, go to? Aditya, how can people get in touch with you? Your group also that you mentioned. Uh,
Yeah, so we have an Instagram and Facebook page. So it's called the Vegoan. So that's Vegoan, the Vegoan. And if anyone likes to get in touch with us, you can just send us a message there. If you'd like to join us for activism or if you need any help in going vegan. We also have another page. It's called Goa Animal Save. So again, Instagram and Facebook. And so on Goa Animal Save, we focus more on highlighting the injustices that animals go through. And in We Goan, it's a more holistic approach. We also we post food recipes or, guides as to where you can eat out in places like Goa, what are the best vegan restaurants in Goa, and anything else that could be of help. Also, a vegan activism posts, you'll find it all there. Also on WhatsApp, we do have a vegan support group. So if anyone would like to get added there, you can get in touch with me on my personal number. You can ask Daryl to share it with you. And we'd be more than happy to help you with anything that you need, whether it's recipes or what you can eat to get your nutrition and so on. Also, we do a lot of things like we organize vegan potlucks, we give out talks like these, but of course, right now because of the pandemic situation, we haven't been able to do a lot of these things. But hopefully, when the situation gets better, we will get back to all this. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Aditya. And if you could also, type in the chat box, type to everyone, just put in your number there. Okay, so people at least who are present with us today can get it.
Yeah, sure.
Nandini, how can our audience get in touch with you?
So I am on Facebook. Healthy Habits Now was the handle that I used to use. So you can find me there with that. I'm on Instagram at Nandini Gulati, just my name. During the lockdown, I deleted my website. So it doesn't exist anymore because I had this intuition that I need to reinvent. So I'm in the process of reinventing. I'm in that transition phase, but I will always work in health, and I'll always work in around this area of holistic health, which includes plant-based, of course. But one of the resources that I wanted to share with you, you mentioned my book right in the beginning. So I had just gone to pick my book so I could show it. It's called The Guilt-Free Vegan Cookbook. This is the new cover. It's the same old book. It's about 4 years old. And I just want to introduce it to people who may be looking for healthy options to eat and feel like, now what do we do? So this book has incredibly simple recipes. Mala is my co-author. We wrote it because we wanted it to be used by people like us who don't want very complicated recipes, who are not super chefs, but still want to be able to eat a variety of food and even be able to eat restaurant quality food at home. Because one of the things that happened is that in my when I work as a health coach, many of my clients would fall off the wagon because I teach whole plant-based food. So they would fall off the whole plant-based food wagon because they get very bored. They want to eat some Thai food, or they wanted to eat some pizza, or they had a craving for ice cream, something like that. So I wanted to give my clients an option to make all of this at home and make it in a really simple way with ingredients that can be found in any Indian city. Because what was happening at that time, 5 years ago when we wrote this book, a lot of vegan recipes that people were Googling for were, American or British, and they didn't find some of the ingredients. So in this book, we have a section on Thai cuisine, one on Mediterranean cuisine, one on American cuisine, which has pizza and cottage fries and burgers and, stuff like that. And one, of course, on Indian, and another one on Italian for people, who are looking for that kind of pasta and lasagna and stuff like that. So that would be a good start. I'm working on my second book now, which is going to be completely Indian, also whole food plant-based and gluten-free. So for people who may not know what whole food plant-based means, it's actually a step closer to nature, because in that you have wholesome food that has not anything chemical added to it, and food that has not anything taken out of it. For example, when we use maida, we take out the chaff, we take out all the fiber of the wheat, and we are just left with maida. So the idea is that the food should be wholesome, and it should not be interfered by man, apart from simply grinding it or cooking it or chopping it. You shouldn't take anything out by mechanized processes. So this book adheres to those principles and still gives you simple to make and delicious food.
Thank you, Nandini, for all the resources. Um, and I have to say, yes, even I have a copy of Nandini's book. I think got it when she came to Goa to publicize it. I think it's about 4 years, Nandini.
Yeah, it's 4 years. I think, yeah, 2015, I think it came out. So
Okay, okay,
5
yeah.
years, yeah.
And I've made some of them. I have not made all because actually I don't do the cooking in my house. My mom does the cooking. Yeah, but it's a wonderful book, and I've shared it with friends, and they've also tried to
Yeah,
uh,
it's doing well. It's in its third edition now, third or
okay,
fourth, I can't remember. But yeah, it's still selling. So the publisher is still wanting to publish it and keep it out there.
wonderful. Shankar, how can our viewers get in touch with you, and also your projects and the movement that you're doing, and also the vegan festivals and conferences?
Yes, we have been having so many activities, right from leafleting to going to school visits, going to exhibitions, speeches, and every activity. It is evolving at present due to lockdown and our whole evolution. We have been changing our activities. But one activity throughout our existence is vegan festivals. We have been organizing vegan festivals for people to come together in real life, meet real people, share and learn from them. So this has been very useful. People come to our festivals, get motivated, go back, do more things. So
So,
that has
Shankar,
been
my question about the vegan festival is, does it happen in particular cities in India, or does it change location or out of India?
yes, it is only in India I have organized. Once it was in Bangalore, major city. Other than that, all in rural place. People, especially from abroad, they would like to come and see Indian villages, natural places, spend time here. Therefore, we have been organizing in a very remote place, but very exciting, interesting nature lovers place. So
And
every
where's
year it
the
happens.
next one? Location for the next one?
Next one will be, it's near my place. It's Murdeshwar, Shirur and Baindur. In three places we'll be organizing. It is an international vegan festival in 2021. It is 16th International Vegan Festival, started in 1981 in Denmark. So the same series I had organized in 2007 in India. Again, it will be in India in 2021 in August. And apart from that, we have been having our annual vegan festivals. That is, this year it was cancelled due to COVID. Otherwise, it would happen. It's a free event. We don't charge anything. People come, live in this forest, stay 2-3 days, have a bonding, stay together, eat together, and it's a fun actually. People come from all over the world also, many countries, almost all the states from India. So this is one of the major events we have been holding, and other smaller events, smaller activities we keep having. Newsletters we had, and
Any, Shankar, any contact point, any website, any email that people can communicate you with?
it's called vgan.in. If you search Indian Vegan Society or Sattvic Vegan Society in Google, you'll get ours on top. It's vgan.in.
Oh,
We have WhatsApp group also where we share only resources once a week. There are too much information on WhatsApp groups. Therefore, we have limited it to only on Fridays we share. All 6 days it's silent, dormant, and one day people can share. Then we have our Facebook and Instagram, Twitter. Everywhere we are present, but a very limited presence. And
oh,
I have phone numbers, WhatsApp number, everything I can share with you. People
yes,
can get in touch
please do
with me.
that. Yeah, please put that in the chat.
So what I think I would like to share with you is my veganism or sattvic veganism, what we call, is not competitive veganism, what you see elsewhere. It is not finding alternatives for everything we do at present. It is not doing what we are not supposed to do, doing something what we are supposed to do. So I don't we advise people to find alternatives for everything what we are doing at present. Living simple, close to nature, and without any hassles, that makes our life simpler and worthwhile living. So for any parallel or alternate veganism, So I would be happy to share my views. If it is just finding alternatives, I'm not an expert on that.
Okay. So if you could just type the website once more in the chat, that would be wonderful.
Sure, I'll do that.
And with the audience, I also would like to share, especially with those of you who are in Goa, we have a WhatsApp group, okay, Vegans in Goa. For that, you can get in touch with me. I'll just put down my WhatsApp number. And there is also a group on Facebook, Vegans in Goa. You can join that. And I have a third group on Facebook called Vegan Food Cooking. Okay, earlier it was named Vegan Cooking, and I did, yeah, then I got such a laugh the day I changed, the name of the group because yeah, people don't want to cook vegans. Yeah, so now it's called Vegan Food Cooking. We have, I think now it became popular because people are sharing a lot of recipes and international recipes. Now I think it's touched maybe 3,000 people, um, and so you can go there. We also vegans in Goa and some of our other friends, we were constantly sharing recipes on our groups, all Indian recipes and what is easy to make. So on that group in Facebook, Vegan Food Cooking, in the pinned up post, I've shared our, you know, vegan recipes kind of PDF document. So that's a resource for you. Now I would like to, yes, take up the Q&A from the audience. So the first is from Dr. Vasudha Kothari, and she says, I am lacto vegan for the last 35 years. I want to become vegan for last years, but find it difficult to change diet, especially milk and milk products. Due to my stomach problem, yogurts and buttermilk is good. This is my belief. What is your opinion for stomach problems? Nandini, would you like to take that?
Okay, so I think Daryl is the expert on stomach and stomach issues and problems, but I can answer your question in terms of the alternatives to yogurt and milk. I think what Shankar Narayanji has shared is very profound, that we actually don't need alternatives. So, whenever people ask me, so what's the alternative to milk? So the first thing I say is, remember, you're not a baby calf. So we don't actually need milk. Yeah. We are grown up, we are weaned off that stage because all mammals, as you know, drink milk from their mothers when they're babies, and then they wean off and they go on to their natural diet. Even a calf is not drinking its mother's milk, but we are. So the first thing is, we actually don't need an alternative. However, having said that, because of the way we have been eating and because of the conditioning, there are certain cravings and certain habits that we have. And sometimes when we are in the transition phase, it's important to be able to get that taste, because otherwise we will probably never make the switch. So what I would recommend is actually, it is a myth that probiotics are only in cow's milk. If you were to make a curd with peanuts, there is probiotic over there as well, because the same bacteria is curdling the milk over there and setting the curd. So you can easily find the recipe of peanut curd online on YouTube. You'll get a nice video of peanut curd. So just try that. And for chas, you could use the peanut curd, or you could make it simply out of coconut milk by adding some curry leaves and ginger and some chili and some black salt and lime juice to make it slightly sour, and just put it in the mixie and give it a whir and put a nice tadka of mustard seeds after that. So you could get chas like that if that's what you're looking for, because you believe that it really helps you with your stomach issues. So you could substitute it in that way. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you, Nandini. Aditya, would you want to say
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah, so just like Nandini said, that cow's milk is for the baby cows. It's not really required for humans. So there's no real need for us to consume dairy products. And there's a lot of studies which actually show that dairy products can cause digestive and other issues. And I can always share a lot of articles discussing this. So I think just the best thing for your gut health would be just to adopt a plant-based diet. There's this and not really worry so much about. But of course, if you want probiotics, you can have all the vegan curd and all, like Nandini said. However, if you switch to a plant-based diet, it will do much better for you than if you are a vegetarian and consuming dairy. There's this very interesting discovery. It was done by Elizabeth Blackburn. So she won a Nobel Prize for this discovery. She found that when you switch to a plant-based diet, more than 500 genes in your body change within a period of almost 3 months. So all the good genes are turned on, which fight disease, and all the bad genes are turned off, which promote disease. So I think as long as you're following a healthy plant-based diet, that's all that you really need for your gut. You don't really need alternatives, but if you wish, you can make all the plant-based alternatives and you can look up the recipes. And also, if you're making peanut curd, another small thing I'd like to add is you can actually purchase the probiotics and add them to the curd. I haven't done this personally because I'm not much into curd, but I've heard many of my other vegan friends try this. So that's all I'd like to say about this.
On this question, now one thing people need to understand is that the curd, curd and chas, it is just being used as a medium for multiplying bacteria. So there are so many other mediums you can use. So you don't have to take a medium that is damaging like cow's milk that has got 30 times higher estrogen than the normal estrogen levels of the human body. Okay, it's from this high estrogen levels. Now this is even from the organic grass-fed holy cow of India. Now additional to that is the hormones, synthetic hormones that they inject the calves with, or for them to grow faster, or inject the mother cows with so that they make more milk. That is additional. But even the most natural cow will have 30, close to 30 times higher estrogen. I can agree to Jersey cow, A2 cow having a little different percentage of that or strength of estrogen. But you have to realize it is that estrogen that makes the baby calf grow into a full size cow in 18 to 24 months. So that kind of high estrogen is required for an accelerated growth. And human beings, no way, we do not grow to full size in 3 years. Okay, so our hormone levels of estrogen that mothers give us at that time, it's a completely different equation. And certainly after 3 4 years, we don't need that milk to get to our full size state. So it's a completely inappropriate, unmatching food for the human body. So now instead of using the curd and the chas, right now, in fact, I took a break because I went to get out something from the fridge. And in my house, there is just this last Sunday, okay, I made vegan ice cream, which is I had some nice ripe bananas, the plantains, what they call, and it was so easy. It took 5 minutes. Okay, I took two bananas that are ripe. I just peeling them over there only on the mixer, chopped it, dropped it inside. I took two fistful like this of cashew nuts from packet, threw it inside. I put I think about 3 tablespoons of water and I just blended it. Became like a nice thick thing, and that's the ice cream that I have, and it is selling on the the Earth Keepers market. So we just instead of banana, then we put in mango sometime. Our fantastic product is jackfruit ice cream. Whatever is in season, I just chop that up, put in the blender, two handfuls, and it's and it takes 5 minutes to blend, and then it's the freezer. So you can make all of these milk products from that. You can make ice cream and the cashew nuts. If you just blend them in the mixer with water, then you'll have cashew milk. Out of that, my a friend, vegan activist from Pune, she visited me in Goa, Rani Wilfred, and she made vegan butter. My neighbor, who is also vegan, his wife made amazing vegan cheese. So you can get all of these things. You can get vegan cakes, vegan ice cream, vegan butter, vegan mousse, vegan chas, and everything from nut milk. And sometimes it can be cashew nut milk or groundnut milk or almond milk or soya milk or pumpkin seed milk. That's got the highest protein. So these are all natural foods for the human body. They are placed by God and they grow every season. So we know that's our food. But cow's milk is actually not a regular food. It is made by this industry and supplied to us. In fact, that is the substitution. We used to have this earlier. What the industry makes as a product to give us and take money from us as a business, that is the alternative that is being pushed on us. So yeah, that's just my reply to tell you that you can get your healthy bacteria. Learn from our recipe books. It will teach you how to ferment all of these things and get your bacteria. And if you don't have time to do it, you can always take probiotic capsules. Or in my book, look at the chapter on probiotics. You can make cultured vegetables at home. So those are all natural recipes. My next question is from anonymous. Can panelists share how vegan diet can change dietary choices? Example, dairies such as dairy is a big part of our life since childhood. What are the best dairy alternatives? So yes, we already gave the best dairy alternatives. Um, and I just, before opening it to the panelists, I just want to mention this statement that people say that dairy is such a big part of Indian life. And I would like to share you, I've given details in my book, why India is the diabetic capital of the world, even a leader in knee replacement surgeries and cataract surgeries. I don't think anybody needs a US study or some study from another country, because you've seen the amount of cataract surgeries and knee replacement surgeries in your own family, in your own society, and your own city, and it's certainly much higher than what's happening in other countries. Why? Because India has got this culture of so much of milk products and cakes and mithai, especially all the mithais, the milk sweets and chocolates. That's so high. So in my book, you'll get these details how milk is one of the main contributing factors. I think 90% of it. Now, when I talk about acidity, okay, so cow's milk, it's written how it creates acidity in the human body. But acidity also is contributed by alcohol, too much of dark chocolate, too much of grains. So to acidity, you at least got 4, 5, 6, 7 contributors. But when it comes to cataract and glaucoma, milk is the main thing causing cataract and glaucoma. So, so we are paying the price for this milk being such a large part of our diet. And the main thing is you have to see the proof. Once you give up milk and milk products completely, you will see people have their joint pains have gone within a week's time. Okay, this is the last workshop that I had done in Goa also. Within the first class was for 3 hours, and then in the next week, the next class was for another 3 hours on a Thursday. Within 1 week's time, a couple of the people who attended the workshop, their joint pains and the finger pains went because they stopped milk and all milk products. So, so we need to make these. So it's not necessarily that. Traditional foods are the smartest and the wisest and the healthiest foods. You will see trends of certain illnesses in certain countries that are coming through foods, and that is because that country had that kind of food habits. So I would say it's high time we change it and we follow the proof. Uh, Speak to all the people whose kidney stones have stopped reoccurring after stopping milk and milk products. So there are some other books, Milk the Silent Killer by Dr. N.K. Sharma. Please read that. The China Study is another book also that you should read to understand the research and the proof of, the benefits of giving up milk. I would go to the next. Yes, any other panelists wanted to share on this part, dairy alternatives?
Yeah, I just like to share a little something. So if you're living so if you have access to like coconuts, it's very easy to make coconut milk, and it really just goes well with anything. It goes well with a tea or coffee or shakes, anything. So it's one of the easiest alternatives you can make. And of course, you can also try almond and making these by yourself. Or else today, like dairy alternatives, like if you're craving things like chocolate or cheese, they're just coming up left, right, and center. If you just go on Amazon right now, you don't have access to a supermarket. You can just type vegan cheese and you'll find 2 3 brands show up on your feed. So if that's something you're into, ordering things online, that's another alternative. Yeah, that's all I'd like to say.
Okay, thank you, Aditya. So I will go to the next question from Anonymous. I have recently become vegan. I had gone through juicing and fasting for 3 days. 2 weeks after this, everything was fine. But since the last 1 week, me and family have loose stools on having raw food. My stool culture done in a lab came clean. What do you suggest? Shankar, would you like to comment on this?
Okay. Thank you for giving this is the right question for me, because I am not a doctor. I am not a health expert. I am a natural living exponent. First thing, okay, we are too many in number. Not everyone can have perfect life, and we are not immortals. So when we realize this, our mind becomes calm. So we are not going to be here forever. So we are not having a perfect life. So this settles the issue to some extent. Then, okay, whatever best available option in the given circumstances, we need to take care of our body. So we have enough options in that. Whether okay, you want to go for milk or other meat alternatives or without alternatives, you have enough choices. We can go for that. And as far as stomach is concerned, I too have had a lot of problems. I do fasting. Yesterday I was on a fast. I had a little problem on Wednesday, I think. So I immediately fasted for 36 hours. It cleared totally. So I regained everything. So I lost 10 kilos in last 1 year. Physically, lighter body helps me in mobility and activities. So I reduced my weight. I'm 5'6" height, and I was 66, 67 kilos 1 year ago. So I came down to 55 now, 54 and 55. That helped me a lot. So overall management of body, it is not just one dimensional. There are so many things. We have learned all the negative things. We have to unlearn all those things, go back to nature and eat well, eat properly, a variety of plant food. I don't say plant-based food, because plant-based can include animal products according to definition. Therefore, I say plant food. So plant-based, you have to ask again, is it vegan or not? So I don't use plant-based. Therefore, plant food, if you use, there should be a variety of food. It's not one rice or wheat or something. So keep changing your food. I mean, not at a time you have to eat everything. Keep changing. Eat a variety of green leaves, fruits, vegetables, grains, lentils. All this you should include over a period of time, maybe a week or a month. So if you have all this in your diet, I think there shouldn't be a problem. And before that, you need to have a calm mind. That is most important, I feel.
Okay. Thank you, Shankar. I would just like to add on to this. Now people have that a vegan diet and a raw diet is very detoxing and healthy, and that is the truth. But you also have to have some practical consideration. That means suddenly changing and shifting from cooked food to raw food diet. You see, we've got certain strains of bacteria and that colonize our gut. Even my advice is from a non-vegetarian becoming a vegan, overnight in 14 days. I don't advise that, because with your switch, your gut bacteria, because there are those slightly different strains of bacteria that will come in once you eat more vegetables. Okay, and your gut has had a slightly different culture when eating more of meats. So you need to do the change gradually. So even for this person who recently became vegan, and that itself was a first change for your body, giving up meats, giving up milk, giving up eggs. when you do that thing, you should at least allow that transition for 3 months. Okay, then after that you can go on to juicing and fasting. Now when you eat a lot of raw food and you do juicing, there's a lot of fiber that comes in. Okay, and it does a lot of cleaning of the intestines. So that is why when the intestines get cleansed, the stools will move faster. So with regards to this, so I think it's a 3 times kind of effect that you're doing. That is going vegan, then going into raw food and fasting as well. So take it a little bit easier, on yourself. So what I would advise right now is to not have too much of juicing and all of that right now. Go a little bit easy, and especially on your raw juices. Uh, if you're still, you and your family, so this is happening to your entire family because you all have been on something else and you all have made a drastic change. Okay, so uh, go low on the juicing right now. Have one, two salads in a day. Don't do too much of raw till your digestive and your stools start forming again. And then the next time when you do it, go a little bit gradual. Fasting is for people who are two reasons. Is first of all, the main reason people want to fast is they want to drop a lot of kilos. Okay, and the other reason is for stored fat to get burned, because that stored fat went in your body maybe over 8-10 years when you were eating processed foods, or foods with chemicals inside. So as that goes and gets stored in your body, the chemicals also get stored in your fat cells. So that's the reason why people do 2-3 days fast, to let that fat out of their system, so those toxins can get released. And many people find more energy, clarity of mind, uh, when they do this kind of fasting. So my advice to you is, go slow right now. Stop the raw juicing. Do that with your entire family for about 15 days. You eat cooked vegetables, a little more cooked food, and then when your stools start forming again, then you can slowly introduce very gradual salads every day in your diet, and fasting as and when you you know want to do. That means if you do a 2-3 day fast, then you don't fast again for 10 days. Okay, then after 10 days again, you can try a 2-3 day fast. Uh, Nandini, would you like to add anything more to that?
No, I think that.
That's good. Oh, okay. So I'll go for one more question. Can SIBO be caused by dairy? That is, SIBO, for those who don't know, it is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. This is anonymous. Can SIBO be caused by dairy? How to get healthy bacteria with plant-based diet if one has been in antibiotics and acidity reducing medicine? Aditya, do you have any
Yeah.
research or awareness of this? SIBO, is
Hmm.
it caused by dairy?
Yeah, SIBO is actually a very common thing, along with other digestive issues such as like the bowel syndrome and all that.
Yes.
Now, like just what I said earlier, if you just follow a healthy plant-based diet, you should actually see a lot of reversal of many of these problems. Now, regarding dairy and SIBO, I haven't read much about direct links between dairy and SIBO, but however, dairy it is linked to many other health problems. Because if you look at it, it's like a cocktail of hormones. It has estrogen, it's a female growth hormone. It has IGF-1, which stands for insulin like growth factor 1. It's a hormone that can accelerate growth in cancer cells. Then it has cholesterol and saturated fat. So, to get into more detail about this, the person can get in touch with me, and I'd be more than happy to share studies on this. I'll look up some more studies regarding SIBO and dairy. But yeah, my simple advice would be to just follow a healthy plant-based diet. And because it's important that you transition entirely, because if you're eating a plant-based diet, your gut bacteria is way more different than someone who's even vegetarian. Your gut bacteria actually changes completely when you do it. So to really experience the benefits, I suggest slowly making the transition and then see how you're feeling while you're on a fully plant-based diet. So that's what I have to say for now.
Okay. Thank you, Aditya. And yes, so the options of how to get healthy bacteria on a plant-based diet, I had mentioned before. So one is from all the you can make nut milk based cheeses and curds and chas also. So that is one way. Look up our recipe books for that. Then the second is to have cultured vegetables. Then the probiotics chapter of my book, or you can just Google online how to make kanji. So that is the traditional recipes in the villages, okay, of India. So kanji is a alternative, and otherwise you can have pre and probiotic capsules. You get them in pharmacies or online stores also, on Amazon also. And antibiotics, yeah. Anybody who's been taking antibiotics, they kill a lot of your good bacteria in the digestive tract. So generally, for somebody who has taken a course of antibiotics for even 5 days, it is recommended to have at least one probiotic capsule, maybe half an hour after lunch every day for at least 1 month. Okay, and if you've done it twice in a gap span of 1, 2 or 3 months, then you should have probiotics for at least 3 months. We need to remember that probiotics have to be a part of our regular intake of food. If you happen to have some amount of raw organic vegetables like carrots or radish or beetroot, uh, then you can get some, healthy bacteria if you are not scraping away the, all the skin and all of that. You at least wash it under running tap water, get out all the mud, and in the uh, the crevices, the lines of the carrot and the beetroot and radish, you get a little bit of uh, healthy bacteria. So those are options, and of course there are also options of kombucha. So Google up what is kombucha. It's tea, and then from that tea you have to add a little bit of sugar and culture to it. Then there's also kefir, there's sauerkraut, there's cabbage rejuvelac. So those are all the fermented versions of foods that can give you good healthy gut bacteria. Yes, Nandini, you wanted to mention something.
Yeah, I wanted to add something to this, which is everybody knows about probiotics because they have been marketed quite aggressively. And of course, also because it is a real problem because we are losing our gut microbiome because of our food habits, because of all the radiation exposure and so on. However, there is one thing that is not mentioned a lot, which is prebiotic. And people get very confused between this prebiotic, probiotic, and of course it is very confusing, all these new terminologies that we are coming up with. But to put it very simply, prebiotic is simply the food of the probiotic, the good bacteria. So the thing is, if you want to grow some, let's say, organism or animal in a particular area or forest, what would you do? You would provide a lot of their food so they never go hungry and they thrive and they multiply. So similarly, we have to look at what is the food of the good bacteria and what is the food of the bad bacteria. So the bad bacteria, of course, thrives on all the processed food and sugar and all of that. But the food of the good bacteria, it's amazing, is actually the food that is good for us. So it is green leaves. It is a lot of fibrous food, which is raw, like carrots and radishes or beets and so on. And of course, all the fruits and all that. So the fiber that is present is something that the good bacteria loves to chomp on. And if you provide that soluble as well as insoluble fiber, so without peeling the vegetables, whatever can be had without peeling, and even the fruit, whatever can be had without peeling, then that provides a lot of food. so that the good bacteria can feast on it and grow and thrive in your gut. So don't just focus on probiotic, because you see there are millions of bacteria that live in inside our body and outside our body, and the strains that usually are given in pills are very limited. There are 4 or 5 strains of bacteria, or if it's a really good pill, maybe 20 or 30 strains. But in our body, there are thousands of strains. So if you give them the right food, then they will thrive. Don't just fall for this probiotic marketing too much. Of course, have it, but pay attention to what you're eating. Because if you're going to have kombucha or sauerkraut and then go out and have something very toxic with chemicals, then you're kind of negating the whole point. So take probiotic, but feed that bacteria a lot of prebiotic.
Yes, thank you, Nandini. Yes, that's a very important point for people to understand the whole environment in which probiotic bacteria flourish.
And I would also say go out in nature, because you absorb a lot of bacteria, probiotics, when you're out in nature, especially like in a forest, or work in your garden. Get your hands dirty, let the dirt settle under your nails. And because we just no longer walk on the ground, we no longer work with the soil, that's another reason that we suffer these kind of modern day deficiencies, urban deficiencies that I call them.
Okay. Thank you, Nandini. So if I can go to my next question, Sanam Mirpuri. I had tried being a vegan for 1 month, 5 years back. Then one day I had 1 teaspoon kulfi. So I got fever and asthma, totally breathless. Does that mean veganism is not for me, or is it a process I have to overcome? So first thing I would like to mention, Sanam, it could also be some coincidence that you were in a position, or generally fever and all does not happen from just having a kulfi. So maybe it could have been something else that was also happening parallelly with you and you made the connection. But I would like to any other panelist to also comment on this. Sanam says that 5 years back she had 1 teaspoon after being vegan for 1 month. She had 1 teaspoon of kulfi, and then she had high fever and asthma.
Yeah, I'd like to say something.
Yes.
So, if she was vegan for 5 months, that means
No.
definitely there was a change
vegan.
in her gut bacteria.
She was vegan for 1 month, 5 years back.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm not sure, but there could be a possibility that she experienced changes in the gut bacteria because you're plant-based for so long. So what is very likely to happen is if you consume any animal product, your gut bacteria isn't really ready to digest it, and that could have caused some problem. And I also have an example of a friend. I had another co-activist friend. So she was vegan for over a year, and once I think she ordered dosa or something at a restaurant, and she forgot to tell them not to add butter. Usually they don't add butter, but this was in Bangalore. She had gone to Bangalore, and when she ate that, it actually had butter in it, and she didn't realize after she ate around, I don't know, half of it. And that day she felt she didn't feel good. She didn't feel very good in her stomach and all that. So I think the biggest reason could be the gut bacteria thing. If you're vegan for too long and you eat like an animal product, it could have some sort of a effect on the body. And this may or may not be the case with this person. So, but this could be a reason, probably.
Okay, Aditya, thanks for that.
Let me add one thing. Okay.
Yes, Shankar.
Okay. If you search Dr. B.M. Hegde on net, you will get a lot of information about health. I am his follower. So he is a cardiologist, an internationally renowned heart surgeon, was a medical college principal, is a Padma Bhushan awardee, very relevant and respected person. His saying, summary of his saying is, it is not just food what is causing your disease or problems. It is sum total of all your activities. You cannot directly relate all your illness to just one food or what you take inside. There are so many complex interplay in our body. It could be our mind, our activities, so many things. Therefore, don't relate it to one thing. Then if you're doing that, you'll be making a mistake. So there are so many complex things happening in our body. Therefore, we have to take it in a holistic view.
Yeah, thank you, Shankar, for that reply. The next question is from Sai. Uh, if we are using plant-based food and also get diseases, why is that so? What is the main, does that mean veganism is not for me, or is it a process I have to overcome? So I would like to, just comment on that. Is that even in so vegan food means plant-based food, right? But even within plant-based food, people are doing many wrong things, like eating too much of grains that give acidity, frying their foods a lot, and they go to a supermarket and a mall and they pick up a vegan product that has got chemicals and all of that in it. So you have to look at the content of it. So there was another question over here, that for digestive disorder, should I give up gluten? So yeah, gluten is a harsh protein, and for those people who have weak intestines, meaning weak intestines comes from some history of stomach infection or amoebiasis or dysentery or gastroenteritis, where you have mild small intestinal inflammation or colon inflammation. For such people, yes, gluten is a harsh protein, and it could give you bloating or IBS kind of symptoms. So I've seen this a lot, even within vegan food choices. That's why I go mainly for healthy food choices. So be careful of that. Within vegan food, there are many mistakes that people are making with too much fried food and some unhealthy choices.
Can I answer that?
Yes, Nandini.
To that? So, food is just one aspect of our physical body. So there is also exercise. There is also the environment in which we are living. There is the other holistic side, the mental situation, the emotional stresses, the spiritual issues. So when we have to look at health, we look at it in a holistic way. There are people who can eat a very clean diet, whole food, plant based, or even raw food, and still get illnesses. I get illnesses as well, and I have friends who eat a very clean diet and get illnesses as well, including asthma. Or I, for example, was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis many years ago before I went vegan. And over the years, it hasn't completely gone away, but a lot of my medicine has been reduced. So now I'm actually experimenting with raw veganism in my effort to reduce the inflammation completely in my body. So it's true that there are people who can be eating very clean and still get sick. And there we have to explore the holistic areas. Is it the mind? Is it some past trauma, emotional trauma that we are unable to release, which has got settled in our body, that we are finding it difficult to face? So we have to look at some of these things. The environment, what's the air quality? I live in Delhi, where the air quality is so bad that even people with no asthma can get asthma. It's like terrible. And doctors have reported, like, all the autoimmune diseases, the uh, the the uh, the symptoms spike when the pollution spikes. So what kind of water quality are you getting? So all of these things make a difference. Are you living in a very stressful situation right now? Is that constantly stressing, and causing your sympathetic nervous system to just go crazy and to, take all your parameters up because you're so stressed? So look at some of these factors as well if you feel that you're eating a clean diet and you're still getting diseases.
Yes.
I'd like to add. I'd like
Yes.
to add something small to that. I think the question isn't really saying if you're on a plant-based diet. I think it's more saying if we eat plants, we still get diseases. So it's not exactly talking about people who are on a plant-based diet. So if I have to answer that question that way, then yeah, I think it's just simple. If you're consuming animal products as well as plant foods, now of course you may or may not be in very bad health, but you have to see how are you feeling when you're on a plant-based diet completely. I'd like to add a little small study. This was from Taiwan actually. I don't know all the details of the study, but what they did was they studied three groups: vegans, vegetarians, non-vegetarians, and they found that among these three groups, the non-vegetarians had the most health problems. And another interesting thing they found was that these non-vegetarians were not heavy consumers of meat or animal products. They were actually eating animal products very sparsely. So you can possibly even not eat too much animal products and still be in bad health. That is also possible. So I hope that made some
Yes.
sense. And
Yeah. Thank
okay.
you, Aditya. From Vijaya, is having kanji and idli same in terms of probiotics, as one is raw and the other one is cooked? So, Nandini, would you like to comment on that?
I think getting probiotic is same, but if you have to give food for the bacteria, then I would think that the raw food is a little superior to the cooked food. That's what I
Right.
would.
Yes, I would agree with that, because you see, kanji is something that is made raw, and the bacteria get a chance to live. But in idli, when you cook and steam the idli, you have to realize that all the bacteria is dead. Now,
Correct.
what happens is, in the steaming process, there was live bacteria in it. But when you steam it, and all those holes that are created, they are actually created from all the bacteria getting vaporized. Okay, just imagine it like that. So you have a product that went through fermentation, but it has no living culture of bacteria left. Okay, so I don't consider dosas and idlis as fermented food. No, they went through a process of initial fermentation, but they are not probiotic foods at all. Last one. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Anonymous. I have a lot of raw vegetables and fruits, but still my hemoglobin has not moved up from 12.9. My RBC saturation is 33%. What should I do to increase my HB to 15? Uh, Anonymous. So yes, of course, eating. Look at the charts. Even on my website, in the section on nutrition, there will be the certain foods that give you, more hemoglobin. It's all iron based, and figs are there, beetroot is there, almonds are there. You see the rest of the list there. The other second thing is, once you have a lot of these, raw foods, and you're expecting to your body to absorb hemoglobin, you have to see whether your intestines have inflammation or not, because all inflamed intestines, they cannot uptake all of these nutrients easily. So you will have inflamed intestines if you are having too much of processed foods, okay, in these tins and the tetra packs and all. So cut out all those processed foods. If you are having too much of fried foods, that will also cause intestinal inflammation and cholesterol. So avoid those things. So stick more to natural foods and healthy foods, so that your intestinal inflammation comes down. Then you also, if you know a little bit of acupressure, or you refer to my book, then test your liver function. Okay, liver function is also very important. Uh, and check your intestine also weakness. You can use acupressure to heal that and bring down the inflammation, and then your uptake will be better. Yes. Any other panelists who would like to share more on this?
I really believe in the power of greens. So any seasonal greens, if you could just increase the consumption of seasonal greens to 300 grams to 500 grams, as much as you can tolerate. But of course, start slow, start with 100 grams. Then if you can tolerate it, go to 150, like that. So this would be any seasonal greens in their raw form. So you could have it as a smoothie. That's what I was having for dinner. So green leaves that are blended with water, and then put in a couple of ripe bananas, some lime juice, and some ginger and you have a nice tasty drink, that will also boost your hemoglobin. Try and do this for 4 weeks and test again after that and see how that helps you. Because not only will it help with increasing hemoglobin, they also have a bunch of minerals and vitamins, and they are also excellent prebiotic food for your gut bacteria. So any seasonal greens that are available in your local area are good enough.
Thank you, Nandini. And we are just over our time, but I'll just take in one question because it's a very common one, and probably give just a one-line answer and open to our panelists also from Vasundhara. Can coconut milk, cashew milk, almond milk, peanut curd increase a bad cholesterol, and can it be used for a senior citizen with heart complications? Now, my simple and short, answer to that is nuts do not, contain all of this cholesterol. It's a complete myth. Cholesterol, at least, is present mainly in animal foods, and of course, the liver of the human body makes cholesterol to repair damage inside the body. So the same things, stop packaged food products, reduce your fried foods, and have lesser damage within the human body. That is what causes plaque and cholesterol. So once that comes down, you will see your cholesterol levels dropping. No nuts or nut milks have ever caused cholesterol. Um, yes. Any other panelists who would like to add something to this?
Yeah, I just like to add a little something. So firstly, like how Daryl explained, you've explained that of course plants don't have any cholesterol. It's only present in animal foods. The only scenario wherein your cholesterol will go up on a plant-based diet is if you're really eating a very high-fat diet, and no one really does that. No one sits eating, coconut milk and nuts and all every day. So naturally, if you're on a plant-based diet, your overall fat consumption will be very low. Especially a saturated fat consumption will be very low. But if you eat healthy fats, nuts, all these things, you will get all your polyunsaturated fats, monounsaturated fats. And see, regarding senior citizens and all that, this has nothing to really do with age or anything. If you're eating something in excess, that could be the problem. It does not matter if you're having like coconut yogurt every day. Just control the quantity. Make sure you're eating within the right amount. Check how much is the nutritional value. Is it very high in fat or not? And that's all you really need to pay attention to. It's all a myth about nuts containing cholesterol, like Daryl said. It's not true.
Thank you, Aditya. Yes. So I think, yeah, it's time. So we have to say, thank you to all our panelists here, Nandini Gulati from Delhi, Shankar Narayan from Udupi, Karnataka, and Aditya Harmalkar from Goa. Thank you for your time and sharing all your experiences, your journey, and also your, advice